The room went silent the moment the Zarn ambassador screamed, "We have walked through storms of acid and bathed in the fire of twin suns. What can Earth possibly throw at us?" The humans didn't answer. They just smiled. Across the galaxy, the Zarn Empire had built its reputation on surviving Deathworlds, planets so hostile that even bacteria filed for early retirement. They wore their scars like medals, their stories like prophecy. Jungle planets with exploding trees. Ocean worlds where the water tried to eat you. Planets that howled and poisoned and burned. So when Earth submitted a formal challenge during the Galactic Apex trials, the Zarn laughed so hard their translator implants overheated. "They think their world is deadly," scoffed High Commander Tiarzal, lounging on a throne of volcanic glass while sipping molten mercury through a reinforced straw. "Humans are soft. No claws. No armor. No venom. They're not Deathworlders, they're dinner." The Zarn declare Earth a Class 3 hazard at best. The rest of the Galactic Coalition snickered in agreement. Formal insult filed. Challenge accepted. Human response pending. That response came from Admiral Sandra Flax, a woman with a scar across her face, steel-toed boots, and a personal kill count that included 1 shark, 2 vending machines, and an AI therapist. She strolled into the Galactic Hall of Trials with a cracked duffel bag full of VHS tapes, a toothpick in her mouth, and a badge on her chest that simply read Plan A. No entourage. No guards. No hesitation. The delegates from 82 civilizations leaned forward. The Zarn grinned, eager for a show of weakness. Sandra dropped the bag on the center dais, kicked it open, and pulled. The countdown hit 0 and everything went wrong. The arena, meant to simulate neutral terrain, glitched before everyone's eyes. Instead of a balanced environment, the simulation warped violently, buildings bent at unnatural angles, a frozen lake formed out of nowhere, and a pickup truck materialized mid-spin, crashing softly into a pile of lawn chairs. The display above flickered. Trial zone, Midwestern suburb, difficulty? The Zarn High Council erupted into confused whispers. On the observation deck, Admiral Sandra Flax casually took a sip from her thermos. "That's not a glitch," she said. "That's home." 10 Zarn elite soldiers deployed immediately, fanned out in perfect formation, weapons ready, AI-assisted reflexes primed for enemy engagement. Their commander slipped on black ice before taking 3 steps, slammed into a mailbox, and knocked himself out cold. "Enemy traps detected," someone yelled. "That's just the driveway," Flax muttered. One soldier entered a garage labeled "Property of Uncle Roy" and was immediately attacked by 4 raccoons riding a Roomba. Another tried to seek cover behind a plastic flamingo and triggered a hidden sprinkler system that flash froze him solid. The rest found themselves under siege by flying garden gnomes, malfunctioning leaf blowers, and something called a snowmobile chainsaw sled. Back in the Galactic Arena, the diplomatic observers stared in horror as the Zarn squad screamed for evacuation. A Vrogathi ambassador leaned in. "Are those squirrels armed?" "Technically, no," Flax said. "They just hate authority." Tiarzal, watching from his command chamber, stood up. "This isn't a battlefield. This is a mental health hazard." "Oh, you're gonna love the next one," Flax said, pressing a button on her console. The simulation shifted again. This time the landscape turned swampy and unstable. Lightning struck a plastic palm tree. Mosquitoes the size of golf balls buzzed past the Zarn. One licked the soldier's visor. The HUD flashed. "New zone, Florida, difficulty, you asked for it." Within seconds, chaos returned. A shirtless human ran by holding a Roman candle in each hand, yelling something about freedom juice. An alligator dressed in sunglasses wandered across the battlefield. A mariachi band played on a half-submerged pontoon boat with a banner that read, "You can't evict us, it's our birthday." The Zarn tried to form a line. One stepped in a puddle. It bit him. 2 others took shelter in what looked like an abandoned shed, only to find it was actually the domain of Cousin Mitch, a man whose only weapon was unpredictability and a bottle of homemade pepper spray that doubled as a car degreaser. From the sky, drones dropped small metal canisters labeled emergency supplies. One Zarn opened a kit. It contained a plastic fork, a 6-pack of mystery meat, and a t-shirt reading, "I lost the Apex trials and all I got was this stupid shirt. I demand a reset." Tiarzao roared, slamming his claws onto the console. "Granted," said a trembling coalition delegate. "But Earth must agree." Flax was already typing. "Approved," she said, smirking. "Let's crank it up." The environment pixelated and reloaded again. But instead of terrain, it showed a bland white hallway with soft lights and a single door at the end. The HUD updated. Trial Zone, DMV, difficulty, psychological warfare. "What's a DMV?" Tiarzao asked. Nobody answered. Inside, the new Zarn squad approached a small human woman sitting behind a desk labeled Department of Vehicular Madness. They were handed forms. Endless forms. When they tried to fill them out, the pens didn't work. When they switched pens, the forms changed languages. One soldier was told to wait for number 86. The board said they were on number 7. That was 2 hours ago. Outside the simulation, a Drazari diplomat began crying silently. "They're monsters." "Patience is a weapon," Flax replied. "We mastered it in line." One Zarn snapped and threw his form into the air. The woman behind the desk handed him another form, identical, but in Comic Sans. The squad leader detonated his emergency escape beacon. All 10 Zarn evacuated. Sandra stood from her seat, slow and deliberate. Let the record show, no human fired a single shot. One by one, other species in the chamber began backing away from the monitors. We may have underestimated the psychological depth of human environments," someone whispered. "They weaponized waiting," said another. "But it wasn't over." "Not yet." Sandra tapped her comms. "Steve's landing in the next zone." A hush fell. "You're bringing in Steve?" She nodded. "And he brought the geese." The next morning began with screaming. Not the organized, disciplined screaming of soldiers or strategists, but the chaotic, primal screech of beings who had truly seen too much. The Zarn War tent was now a therapy circle. The bravest among them were rocking back and forth, whispering about the eyes of the squirrel and the snow that burns your skin but still isn't fire. They hadn't even recovered when the skies opened and Steve dropped in. No pod. No suit. No gear. Just jeans, boots, aviators, and a shirt that said, "I wrestled a bear once." It apologized. He landed with a thud, cracked open a can of something that hissed aggressively, and took a long sip. "Morning, nerds." The Zarn drew weapons. Steve raised a hand and tossed a waffle into the air. Half the squad tracked the projectile like it was a grenade. One shot it. Another ducked. 2 just ran. "Relax," Steve grinned. "We're just here for round 2. Above the arena, the zone shifted again. This time, the environment transformed into a brutal desert with cracked asphalt roads, torn billboards, cacti and hoodies, and one guy selling tacos out of a shopping cart labeled legalish. The HUD blinked. Trial Zone, Arizona. Difficulty, heat stroke in vibes. Steve began walking. Behind him, the tactical geese arrived. Dozens of them. Wings glinting in the sunlight. Custom armor plates. Beady red eyes. "Deploying unit honk," Sandra Flax announced from orbit. You all laughed at Earth. Now meet the apex predator. The geese were dropped from low orbit with parachutes fashioned from beer coolers and emergency ponchos. They landed honking furiously, scattering Zarn units into every possible direction. A few stood their ground and were promptly pecked into submission. The Galactic Council looked on in horror as an entire Zarn platoon fell to 6 birds and 1 barefoot man in cargo shorts wielding a selfie stick like a sword. And then Earth escalated again. A new sound erupted, low, vibrating, with a deep unnatural rhythm. The resonator had been activated. The sky shimmered. A massive satellite bloomed open like a steel flower and began transmitting whatever cursed data Earth had fed it. The first wave hit instantly. Bagpipes playing dubstep. The screech of a fax machine synced to polka. A slideshow of cursed stock images blinking to the beat of an AI-generated parody of Bohemian Rhapsody, except all the lyrics were about tax fraud. Ships crashed. Dignitaries vomited. One alien turned to mist and had to be recompiled from backup. "What is this?" the Tsarn Emperor cried out. Flax's voice came through on every comm channel. "This is cultural superiority, sweetheart." Inside the arena, Steve walked toward the main Tsarn bunker. He passed burning trees, shattered gear, and one of their best warriors trying to surrender to a squirrel. Steve stopped. Pulled out a thermos. Took a sip. Pumpkin spice. "Your move." The bunker door opened. Tiarzal himself stood inside, shaking, flanked by what was left of his elite guard. "We underestimated your species," he admitted. "No," Steve said, stepping in, "you misunderstood it." Tiarzal raised his weapon. Steve pulled out a harmonica and blew one cursed note. The bunker's lights flickered. Behind him, the tactical geese began honking in perfect rhythm. One flapped once. And Tiarzal dropped the gun. "I surrender," he whispered. "Just stop the music." And the geese. Anne. Steve. Outside, more Empire ships tried to flee, only to find themselves caught in a broadcast loop where Earth's greatest weapon was unleashed, 24-hour reality TV. Loud. Unfiltered. Uncut. Dozens of alien crews perished during Season 3 of The Bachelor. The Empire's mainframe caught fire when exposed to Jersey Shore. A single episode of Kitchen Nightmares sent 3 AI cores into permanent shutdown from tactical emotional damage. The Galactic Council begged Earth to stop. Earth refused. "This isn't war," Flax said. "This is documentation. Y'all wanted to judge Earth. Now you're gonna learn what Earth is." By the end of Day 3, only 3 Tsarn warships remained. One had rebranded into a food truck. One was broadcasting a live podcast about human resilience. And the third had renamed itself USS Nope and entered a black hole voluntarily. Sandra Flax sent out a final transmission to the galaxy. "Earth didn't come to win. We came to make sure nobody ever invited us to these again." Then she leaned back in her chair, flipped a switch, and prepared the last transmission. The one no species could unsee. The Emperor screamed, "They're going to show us." And the screen went to black. Then, coming up next, a 4th of July backyard party gone wrong, live. Galactic consequences initiated. The Apex trials were officially broken. You said,